Of all the discussions that we've made so far throughout the years, there's one area that we have not actually touched on. And for me, I'm very curious. Trust me, everybody's curious because, I mean, if we've been discussing this for years and there is an area which we are yet to tackle, then it means that, I don't know, I'm ready to listen and we are all ready to listen to you to hear that particular area untouched yet in the fight against Galamsey. So, Doc, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me? I think everybody can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you and we can
Yes.
hear you.
Okay, thank you, Riga Africa, for having me here today. Okay, first of all, a big thank you to all our distinguished presenters, our moderators, participants, media houses that are following this, and also our cherished listeners. I've been in the oil and gas space for over 20 years. And one thing about this topic is that mining will stay with us. And mining has been with us since time immemorial. But unfortunately, we are seeing an ecological suicide. Now, this is no longer a threat. This is an ongoing crisis that we are seeing in our country, Ghana. I was in Ghana 2 weeks ago, and I had the opportunity to fly from Accra to Takoradi. And usually you fly over the River Pra as well. And at 30,000 feet, you can still see how polluted the river is. Now, bear in mind, the River Pra is a 400-kilometer stretch river, and every bit of it is polluted, which obviously is impacting communities, farming communities around those areas. So it is a crisis that we're seeing in our country. And we have also understood the reason why we're having this menace, talking about illegal mining, persistent because of limited economic opportunities, weak monitoring, high demand for minerals, and then, of course, youth and unemployment, which is driving this surge. But we have also understood the repercussions for our country. We have understood the higher use of mercury seeping into the grounds and ending up in water bodies, causing medical challenges, affecting agricultural input, fish farming, cocoa farming, and so on and so forth. But more importantly, we have also understood the destruction of our ecosystem, our lands, our forests, water sources, and farms. Now, what we need to understand, currently as we speak, 4,726 hectares of land in Ghana have been destroyed. Now, for those of us living in Europe, that is like the size of Brussels. We also have like 288 forest reserves in Ghana. As we speak now, 34 of them have been completely destroyed. Ecological suicide. And we've heard that, we even have farmers that are ready to sell their lands. And some of them are even threatening to sell their lands. And we now have many young farmers rushing into mining. Now, all the time, I'm coming to the main point. I'm supposed to be talking about technology, but I really want to raise this issue that we're not talking about. All the time we have been talking about illegal mining. The headlines have been about illegal mining in the media space, everywhere. Even the last 2 days, our focus has been on illegal mining. But truly speaking, this is just one side of the coin. What we also need to be looking at clearly is legal mining. All the time we talk about illegal mining. And if you ask people what exactly is illegal mining, we just point out to maybe a few young people, destroying the environment. That is just one sided of the story. We must look closely at legal mining too. And then we have to be asking ourselves, why is it that our government, our institutions are not in a position to take actions against the menace that we're seeing? Because we are not looking at legal mining. We rather should be looking at this holistically. And that also means that we need to completely change the narrative. We have to stop talking about illegal mining and rather start talking about reckless and irresponsible mining coming from illegal miners and licensed mining companies, especially medium and small mining enterprises. So this ecological suicide that we're seeing, it goes beyond illegal mining. So we have mining companies with licenses also involved in the destruction of our ecosystem. So from that perspective, the conversation cannot be one-sided. We can't just be talking about illegal mining. We have to look at it holistically. Now, the Minerals Commission of Ghana, they have issued 1,800 mining licenses since 2020. And yesterday we learned that gold is even being sourced from 14 regions out of our 16 regions in Ghana. This year alone, in the last 6 months, over 40 concessions have been issued to miners in Ghana. So, and we're seeing the outcomes of mining. So the outcomes of mining has been the same. It has been the same destructive menace. So essentially, we shouldn't be talking about illegal mining, but we rather should be talking about irresponsible and reckless mining. So we must look at the licensed mining companies too, because truly speaking, a lot of these licensed mining companies, they have the resources to buy excavators. They have the resources to build water plants. They have the resources to buy hazardous chemicals that are used in mining. And that is where we have to be looking. And so in the process of advocacy, when we are agitating, when we are asking questions, that is the specific question that we have to be asking. So then if you have an oversight, an overview of licensed mining companies, that will even help you to quickly identify those that are involved in illegal mining. So the question we should be asking ourselves as Ghanaians is that, government, show us a list of miners in our country. Who are those involved in mining in our country? We are not asking those questions, but that is the question that we have to be asking. Who are they? Who are the companies? Who are the individuals? Who are those that have received licensed mining concessions and are mining in our country? And are they adhering to safety standards? Are they compliant with the standards to protect our environment and water bodies? So we need to have a holistic view of mining industry in Ghana. And again, this is what we're not talking about: reckless and irresponsible mining. That is not on the picture. That is not on the table. But that is exactly what we have to be talking about as a country. Now, if you want to talk about technology as a solution, and we've talked a lot about these different technologies that we're seeing, drone and whatever it is. But the first line of action would be to regulate the mining industry in Ghana. If you look at all other industries, all other manufacturing industries, oil and gas, chemical plants, automotive industries, all other manufacturing industries, in order to achieve the proper benefit from them, they have to be regulated, and most of them are regulated. Now, this means that because you have a regulated industry, you are in a position to implement standard working practices. For example, in a refinery, Dangote has a refinery, but it is all regulated. And because of that, you have a structured end-to-end processes where you are adhering to regulations, policies, and laws. Now, one of the key elements of manufacturing industries, and as I said, I've been in the oil and gas industry for 20 years. I work for BP. One of the core principles within our working space is what we call HSSE: health, security, safety, and environment. And there is a dedicated department, and that applies to all the manufacturing companies that I'm aware of. They all have a dedicated department which solely focuses on health, security, safety, and environment for the people working within that space, and not only for the people, but also for the vicinities, the environment in which they operate. So for our mining industry, we need to come up to that level where everything is regulated, because then you can have the opportunity and the basis to install all these different kinds of practices. And then there's a principle of waste management in a regulated industry. Then you can also be in a position to install principles around waste management, which means that you ensure that harmful waste elements do not come into contact with the environment or with people or with our water sources. So as long as our mining industry is not regulated, we can talk and talk and talk and talk, and we will see very, very little changes. And a regulated environment also means that you have standards for training. We heard about training people and equipping people with mining skills. So at the end of the day, you're talking about a regulated workflow covering training, covering employment, taxation, means to raise taxes, sales, management of hazardous goods, marketing of output, legalized revenue generation, which in the end benefits everybody. So once you have a regulated setup in place, then you have a proper value chain, right? Which is benefiting everybody. Young people, can find their way and find jobs as well. Now, the other thing, which people have talked about compliant laws and stuff, but one core element in a regulated environment is to have compliance KPIs. Which means that companies will have to comply to specific KPIs, and once they're not doing that, they're liable for punishment. The big multinational oil companies, some of them, they will have to pay up to 4% of their total revenue when they are not compliant. Now, what that means is that imagine a company making $20 billion of revenue every year, and they have to pay 4% of that revenue in penalties. That's very, very huge. So compliance is very, very essential. But in my mind, what is extremely crucial, especially for Ghana, is something I will call license to operate. So which means that anybody that is getting a license will have to fulfill some requirements in order to be able to keep their license to operate. And that has to be done on a yearly basis. So every year people are checking, okay, are they adhering to our principles? Are they looking at the safety guidelines that we're giving out? Are they going beyond their limits? And as soon as that is the case, then we have to revoke their licenses. So license to operate will have to be an item that we have to put within the space of a regulated manufacturing environment. Now, having done all of these things, once you are in a position to do these things, that is when you can start talking about technology as a solution. And I'm glad my previous co-speakers have already talked a lot about some of these technologies that we can put into place. So we talked about drones and satellite imaging. And then, this is an opportunity to perform real-time detection of illegal mining in forests and river basins. And that will help security agencies to respond faster. Now, one very important thing, which I would expect our mining commission to have, will be a geographical information system and a mapping and also a digital cadastre, because then you have an overview of all the areas and the zones which have been earmarked clearly for mining. Now, what that does is that it prevents overlaps, especially in the issuance of concessions, and then it will help the Minerals Commission actually to track legal versus illegal zones clearly. A lot of the manufacturing companies, they have what we call Internet of Things, IoT sensors, especially for water and land quality. So what that means is that we can use sensors, you can build or install sensors as strategic areas of that facility that you have, and you can use that to monitor, for example, turbidity, mercury levels, or sedimentations that you see in rivers. Now, once you have these sensors, the sensors will be in a position to alert communities and agencies, especially to new illegal operations. The Ghana Gold Board, as far as I remember, recently talked about traceability systems, right? So these are systems that you put in place to ensure that every ounce of gold that is purchased can be traced back to its verified source and extracted in an environmentally compliant manner, right? So for me, I keep on saying that technology is always very, very simple. You know, I'm a tech guy. Technology is always not a problem. People are the problem, right? You know, so in our agitations, we need to change the narrative and really put pressure on government organizations and responsible institutions in order to be able to combat this menace that we find ourselves in. This is going to take a long time for us to address. Now, talking about youth empowerment as an alternative path. Of course, illegal mining attracts youth mainly because of poverty, unemployment, and lack of alternative. But a regulated industry will create decent and profitable alternatives. For example, within that space. Now, I come from a refinery space, and in the refinery space, you have everything. You know, you have IT, you have electrical engineers, you have mechanical engineers, you have everybody. You even have medical doctors working there because the space is regulated. So young people can, you know, have skills, especially in digital trades, coding, digital marketing, cybersecurity within the mining industry. And in any manufacturing industry, as I said, technology is always at the forefront, where you have artisans, engineers, accountants, and so on and so forth. And then today we are talking about TVET and apprenticeship programs. A regulated manufacturing environment provides great avenue for that. You know, whether you're a welder, whether you're a carpenter, whether you have to be performing electrical installations, mechanics, and so on and so forth. Now, the World Economic Forum, there are lots of papers on that. You can Google that, you can search for that. They talk about green jobs for the future. Those are going to be the most prominent jobs for the future. Now, we have destroyed our environment already, but then there's hope and there's an avenue in the process of trying to restore this to create job opportunities for young people. So my previous speaker, you know, talked about reclaiming, like tree planting, land restoration. You know, so the process of trying to reclaim what we've destroyed can employ thousands of young people. But again, that has to be done in a regulated manner. We will have sustainability experts going forward in the future, people who have the capability and skill set to be able to manage waste, to lead in the management of land in a very, very sustainable manner. And when we talk about technology, then of course we also have to be talking about innovation, right? Innovation, in this case, innovation in mining practices. So in introduction of eco-friendly, low impact, small scale mining technologies. And I'm happy, you know, somebody mentioned mercury-free gold processing tools. Some of these tools are available. I think one of those tools is called Gold Catcher or cyanide-free processes. That will help us to reduce environmental damage and bring small scale miners into the formal sector. One of the things when we're talking about innovation is also to be able to build hubs in the different mining communities where we can train young people in technology or even in the manufacturing of small mining tools, agri-tech, and eventually in digital entrepreneurship. Now, all of that is going to provide alternative livelihoods. And
You have
also
5 minutes, so you can be wrapping up.
Yeah, I'm just wrapping up and reduce reliance on illegal mining, right? But you know, in most cases, all of this comes with money. So then you have to be talking about, when you're talking about innovation, you have to talk about finance models. You know, providing startup and grants, microcredit for even for non-mining businesses as well, and then giving people the opportunity to invest in green projects. So, in conclusion, we are rich in gold, clearly. But we can't allow people to mine in a very, very irresponsible and reckless manner. That is what is happening in Ghana. It is not necessarily illegal mining, but we're talking about reckless and irresponsible mining involving people with licenses, mining companies with licenses, and those without licenses. That is where we need to drive the conversation. And mining in Ghana requires a regulated approach. And of course, once we have that regulated approach in place, then we can talk about technology, can talk about youth empowerment. So we need to look at this situation holistically and start talking about reckless and irresponsible mining, both from illegal and legal miners. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Engineer Alex Appiah. Thank you so much. So Doc really mentioned the fact that we're not paying so much attention to legal mining.